Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel for the next part of my series on the Great War at Sea, Jutland 1914 to 1918. Now in this video I'm going to play through a strategic scenario just to build on the previous videos which showed you the different options for tactical combat in this game. Now this is going to show you the very impressively big foundation on which those are built. So to my mind, the strategic elements of this game are where it really does quite well. And so I've chosen to play through one of the operational scenarios set in the Baltic Sea. This one's called Essen's War, and the situation is it's August 1914. The Russian player is cast in the role of Admiral Essen, who was in charge of the Baltic forces at the outbreak of the First World War on the Russian side. He was one of the few officers to emerge from the Russo-Japanese War with any kind of credit. And he did have a reputation as quite a driving, aggressive commander who was not overly intimidated by the much larger German fleet. So this gives the Russian player a very interesting opportunity to basically see what he can do in the opening days of the conflict. And similarly, the German player in this scenario has a lot of ships, but he is effectively deprived of Germany's best warships, mainly because they're all over there, keeping an eye on the British. But, I've folded that bit of the map away. We're off map. So as I'm playing the Russians, what I have done is I've generated a number of possible responses for the German side and filled out the requisite sheets. And as the game progresses, I will see whether my movements trigger any response. But a bit of background before we get straight into the mission. So I'm just going to zoom in on the mission area. I hope you can see all this because it's a nice colourful map, but it's a bit on the garish side as well. So I'm going to go in close. So here is the immediate operational area. My orders from the Tsar are fairly simple, if a bit broad. He wants me to penetrate deep into the Kaiser's aquatic backyard. Really, we're talking about the area around here, just short of Denmark. And he basically has tasked me with humiliating his cousin Willie. The bigger the humiliation, the better. But the means have pretty much been left up to me. He has also cautioned me, and this is what he really did say to Essen, we do not need another Tsushima. Fair point. If I could perhaps disagree with His Imperial Majesty on one thing, I very much want there to be another Tsushima. However, I'd like to make clear that in this new Tsushima, I want the Germans to play the role of the Russian fleet, and I would like us to play the role of the Japanese. Now, the Russian options in this scenario are many. Many of the units of the Baltic fleet were based at Libau, where they developed a new base. And so in August 1914, there was a fairly formidable concentration of ships there, ranging from pre-dreadnought battleships all the way down to destroyers and minesweepers. The German forces were mainly stationed at Danzig, Stettin, and Kiel. Now, like me, the Germans have a mix of pre-dreadnoughts, armoured cruisers, mine layers, destroyers. But as I said earlier, they have rather a few more of them. That said, their forces are divided between 3 different ports, and that may present an opportunity. Now, when it comes to generating missions, the Russian player has, I'll say, quite a wide range of targets and also quite a wide range of dealing with them. So in this scenario, I can potentially earn points for laying mines in certain strategic areas. I can also earn points for going on a bit of a commerce raid and stopping German merchant traffic. I can also earn quite a few victory points for bombarding German coastal hexes, which is also quite tempting. Now, the way missions work in this game may influence my choice because the most flexible sort of aggressive combat mission is to launch a raid. You can give a ship a raid mission and you don't have to plot its entire movement in advance at the start of the game. So vessels comprising a raid can change their mind about what they want to do depending on how what their force composition is. You can start off with the intention of raiding merchant traffic and then change your mind and lob some shells at a coastal hex, or you could do some mine laying if you've got specially equipped destroyers with you. It's quite a flexible order and it's quite a flexible mission type. The only downside of a raid is that it can be composed of no more than 2 ships, which is really quite limiting. I briefly considered launching a raid, but I did not like the risks involved given the disparity of force in the Baltic. And also, I wanted whatever blow I landed to have quite a bit of punch. So, after much umming and ahhing, I decided that I would send a significantly large force across the Baltic on a bombardment mission. And the target of my bombardment mission is the port of Rostock. Yes, I am going to sneak a force from Libau across this neck of the Baltic and give the Kaiser a good kick up the backside, right where he least expects it. Now, this isn't without risk. As we can see, there's choke points everywhere and German fleet units who only really have to leave port in order to intercept me. But I'm counting on the Germans being fairly supine because their overall outlook is defensive. And also, they don't really know what kind of a fleet I'm going to send out. Which brings me very nicely to my next bit. What fleet am I going to send out? These are the ships which I have chosen for this particular mission. Now, just to make clear, I'm not having an extremely thin destroyer screen there. So I've chosen 4 pre-dreadnought battleships, 1 armoured cruiser. They're going to be led by 1 Ilin-class destroyer, which is quite an impressive beast, lots of deck-mounted torpedo tubes. And it will be the flagship for 5 Ukraina-class destroyers. Now, looking at the battleships, we see they're a bit varied. I mean, they're all pretty slow. And their weaponry varies somewhat. That's because Slava and Cesarevich date from the Russo-Japanese War. Andrei Pervozvany and Imperator Pavel were slightly later. They were completed post-1905, but, well, there's slight improvements on the preceding ships. They're not hugely. Now, why have I chosen this force? Well, the first reason, although you don't score any more points as such for having more than 2 heavy ships slamming shells into a shore target, I want a force that makes an impression. I want the Germans to wake up and find a significant fleet of Russian warships hammering one of their major bases. I'm basically aiming for a morale result at this early stage in the war. The other bit of my thinking was it is very, very possible that despite my planned sneakiness, the Germans are going to successfully intercept me. But if they don't quite know how much power I'm bringing with me, my hope is that the interception will turn into a disaster for them. So my strategy is that the bombardment mission, if it succeeds, is all well and good. But equally, if the Germans try to intercept me and I'm able to isolate a weaker portion of their fleet and destroy it, then that will be a major strategic result early in the conflict. Does this plan sound slightly familiar to some of you? Well, that's good, because it should. I'm basically picking up the war plan that the Germans intended to use against the British, and I'm going to see if it works on them. So yes, coastal bombardment as bait in the hope that a somewhat tiny force is stupid enough to try and come out and get me. Now, whether they'll bite or not, I don't know. Let's see. So anyway, I'm going to leave my forces there. Let's get the camera up. Oh yes, starting weather conditions are clear. And I'm just going to riffle my papers for a moment so that you can see what I've planned. So here is my bombardment plan. I don't know how clearly you can see this on the camera, and I realize that to most of you watching, it just looks like a string of coordinates. But what I'll do is I'll introduce you to the player log sheet for strategic movement, because I've not done that before in this video series. So they're pretty straightforward. Those are the mission turns. It only goes up to 36. So if you're playing one of the 60 or 100 turn massive missions, you need to print several of these. Each column is for a different fleet in your force. The shaded boxes, the cross-hatched ones are twilight and they're followed by night turns. So every 6 turns is one complete day, effectively, with your daylight phases and then twilight and night. And it just repeats until you complete your mission, complete the scenario. So my plan, as you can see, the allied player gets to choose on which turn play starts. So I'm deliberately giving up the first day of the scenario because I want my fleet to leave Libau in secret. We travel at night, so first night turn I've got is when we're going to start moving. And then, following about 2 and a bit days sailing, we will arrive at our target where I've written shell. So on turn 20, basically midday of whatever day that is, we should, if all's gone well, be shelling Rostock. And then the rest of it is our route home. Now, if nothing changes, that is the plan that we will follow. However, if the Germans intercept me, that could change things a little bit. So I really will have to see how things progress. But we're going to set off, and as I say, I'll be rolling every turn for possible German reactions to see whether they do put to sea or not. And also, if I'm detected, there'll be a higher chance of them doing so. But we'll see what transpires. As I say, I want my bombardment mission to go well, but if it doesn't do that, I'm equally happy if the Germans want a stand-up fight. Let's see what happens. So, I won't keep waving the piece of paper in front of you because that probably would get annoying. But it is night on, let's say, let's say it's the 10th of August, just because. And I've written down U50, which is the next square along. So we set sail, or get steam up, given that it's the 20th century. And I'll just quickly roll on my homemade charts for the Germans. No reaction from the Germans. As night progresses, we move into V49. I'm also rolling for the weather, by the way. Each turn you roll for the weather state, and the weather's starting as clear. But if you roll a 1, it deteriorates 1. If you roll a 6, the weather track goes up 1 to the next weather level, and if you roll a 1, it goes down. Sorry, I really jumbled my words there. Roll of 6, you move up to mist, then fog, then squall, then storm and gale, as per that track there. We don't really want so much of that. I mean, if I get detected, concealment would be good, but I want good weather for a fight. And if I roll 1s, it just stays clear, or if it's somewhere up here, it climbs down. So far, so good. It's been a fairly decent night. So, come the dawn of the next day, the sea is clear, and we are out at sea. So I'm hoping that our departure from Libau was not observed by anybody. However, I am out of luck in one sense because one German fleet has activated. I don't think I've been rumbled, but they are leaving on what's probably a routine patrol. That is not so good. Also, I've randomized the deployment of the German forces. So while I know the total number of ships they have available at each of these ports, I do not necessarily know who is sailing out. So that's not good. And of course, weather. No change in the weather. Well, oh, I forgot to move myself. That was silly. Right, so we're steaming that away. Will the Germans meet us, I wonder? So next turn, you see, once you've plotted your movement and everything's underway, sorry, that's the cat doing something and shaking my camera. Yeah, once the game is underway, the strategic turns actually proceed pretty quickly. So it is now mid-afternoon on the 11th of August. I have decided to go there. The German fleet, which has put out of Danzig, has decided to go there. No other German fleet has sailed, and the weather has not changed. So how's this going to go down, I wonder? Oh, I should mention, because it's blindingly obvious, but I didn't take, I took it for granted and didn't tell you all. Movement in this game on the strategic map is simultaneous, which is what we have the log sheets for. So every turn you compare, you basically check your log sheet and move your counter accordingly. Another thing I find useful to do, because I very often lose track, is to put a little tick in the margin near the turn so you don't lose track of what you did. I mean, you could just look at the map, but I'm one of those people who gets easily confused. So, getting to the evening of August 10th, we are now steering to the southwest. And much to my deep concern, that German fleet is steering westwards. Oof, we are right at the border of sighting range. We could get something happening. Still no other German fleet units putting out. And also, the weather has just become misty. Now that is interesting, because if we do meet, it might hamper our ability to sight one another. So it's now, actually no, it's August the 11th, isn't it? We're now at twilight, August the 11th. I am now steering westwards, according to my log. The Germans are also steering westwards. No other German fleet is moving, and the weather is still misty. Now you'll notice each turn we're only moving one space. This is fairly normal when ships are cruising. Now my ships are all slow, just as a reminder. You see our movement rating of 1, which means we can't do any better than 1 on the strategic map, even if we wanted to. It's very frustrating for the faster ships I have in my force. The German ships, I don't know. Depending on their force composition, they could be slow ships like me, or they could be fast ships who are merely being economical on fuel. Now, fuel is an optional rule in this game, but it seems a good time to pause and explain it. If you are moving at economical speed, i.e. one box per turn, you check off one of your fuel boxes for every 12 sea zones you enter. So steaming at slow speed really is quite an economical affair. Once you start moving 2 spaces per turn, which fast ships are capable of, you spend 3 fuel points per box entered. So each move you make is is 6 fuel points, so you burn through your fuel an awful lot faster. Now, I would dearly love to know if that German fleet that technically I'm unaware of is moving slowly because it's got slow ships, or because it's just being economical. Now, of course, there's no way I can know either way till I sight them. But the good news for me is this turn, the one that's about to start, night has fallen. And according to my mission log, I'm doing a course alteration that away. Fortunately for me, or perhaps unfortunately, the Germans have unintentionally mirrored my movements. God, sweat, sweat, sweat. Still no move from any of the other German ships, and no change in the weather. So, okay, so far so good. We now get to the second half of the night. I'm still holding course. If you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm trying really hard to avoid land masses, because whenever you come into contact with one, you run the risk of some helpful civilian or naval observer sending, raising the alarm, and a sighting report will be sent out, which is really not what you want. And, oh, interesting. The Germans are going that way. Okay. Yeah, so if you run past land masses, even those without a base on them, you run the risk of being detected. Now, once I've thrown a few shells at Rostock, I don't mind because I'll be detected anyway. But I'm hoping that getting there, if I don't bump into the German fleet, will be a fairly silent affair. So I have to really hold my breath now, because it's now the morning of the 12th of August, and we are steaming into Z44. The Germans are going that way. Interesting patrol route. I wonder what they were expecting. I see a bit of an arc there. They were probably trying to check out whether we were sending a naval expedition, in which case, fools, you've missed us completely. And now they're just doing a big arc, perhaps, to make sure that the neutrals are behaving themselves? Sweden? Denmark? I've got no idea. Well, there's no activity from the rest of the Germans, and it is still misty. Fine with me. We get into afternoon. I press on to Z43. That German fleet is actually heading for the coast, for the Swedish coast. All right. What on earth were you fellows thinking? But we do have movement from another German fleet. The force at Stettin is putting out now. Ugh, I don't like this. Rather, a lot of pieces are beginning to move. Okay, that could make life very interesting very quickly. What about the weather? Because at the moment it's still... Ooh, the weather goes up from misty to fog. Okay, right. So there's a whole load of us blundering around in fog now. Great. And evening is coming on. Evening of the 12th of August, 1914. I'm going to press on to Z42. And let me just very quickly check the rule book, because I have just entered a land... Well, I'm steaming past a land mass. Oh, wait, no, I might be all right. There's nothing in the general rules about it, so it must be scenario specific. I think I had that in mind because in some of the other volumes of this game, you do get sighted if you enter certain land masses, but apparently it is not a problem here. So great. So twilight comes on. Yeah, so, oh, wait, hang on, did I? Did I remember to check for the German fleets? No, I didn't. Okay, hold on. Let's see what our German friends are doing. That one is still creeping along the Swedish coast. Not entirely sure what's going on there. Ah, that one has moved into contact, or potentially moved into contact. Okay, this may be bad news. So now we roll for contact. It is a twilight turn, but that does count as day, unfortunately. And the Central Powers player, who always rolls for contact, has rolled a 4. Now we are normally in good conditions. I'll just wave over the search table. That would be a contact, but let me just check the weather conditions. Nope, unfortunately for me, fog is not enough to shift that either way. So the Germans have found us. Oops, that's put paid to my bombardment mission. And let me see what force this is. So it is from the it's from the Stettin squadron. And let me just see which of the possible combinations it is. A 4, right. Oh, good Lord, I am in so much luck. Here is my squadron. Lots of battleships. We have just run into a very tiny force from Stettin, which consists of one coast defense ship and a single destroyer. Right, okay, well, we're in luck. This is almost what I was gunning for. Now, partly because of table space limitations, but partly because of speed of play, I am going to set this up as a battle using the basic game rules. So I'm just going to create my battle line. Because it's still just about daylight, we sight each other at long range. Have my destroyers in the rear. Let me just find the German ships. Let's just find the right bag. Here we go. So, oh dear, poor Germany. That's really not good. And just to give you a better view, because I didn't really zoom in very well on them the last time, those are the opposing forces. So my battleships, my destroyers versus one coast defense thing and one destroyer. So I really was hoping to run into maybe 1 or 2 modern pre-dreadnoughts, something that I'd be guaranteed to thump. But this will do, I suppose. This is kind of what we wanted. So I've set up for the battle, but I think because I like leaving things on a bit of a cliffhanger, I will commence the fighting in the next video, and we shall see how the Battle of Stettin, as I'm choosing to call it, goes. I don't have any doubt the Germans might try and do a runner. They are so outgunned. The only sensible thing to do is run and raise the alarm, and no doubt they will. But we will see what happens. In the meantime, just to say a huge thank you to you all for bearing with me as I got the rest of this series together. Thank you so much for following it and for your interest. And please do keep the lovely, lovely comments coming. As always, suggestions, tips, queries. If you spot any howlers I've made, please do call them out. But as always, to my long, long suffering veterans who stick with me, I really appreciate it, all of you. A very, very warm hello, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. To anyone who's new visiting my channel for the first time, if this isn't the first of my videos you've ever watched, a huge hello to you. You're more than welcome. Oh dear, I've just realised there's cat hairs. Freaking creature. Yep, a huge welcome to you. Sorry about that. I hope you enjoy this. If it's the Great War at Sea that you're interested in, please do check out the earlier videos I've made. Or if it's wargaming in general, have a bit of a browse. I hope you find something else on the channel that you like. But as I say, you're more than welcome. Please do join in. Always appreciate your company, all of you. And whoever you are and wherever you might be watching from, thank you very much again, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye.